Hello everyone, today I'm going to walk you through how to install the Rostra Toyota heated seats. Here you can see I've already installed them and they work great, they feel great. Hopefully by the end of this tutorial you will have your own set of heated seats in your older Toyota. I'm very happy with how this turned out, so let's get started. Safety first, disconnect your negative battery terminal and wait at least 90 seconds before you start unplugging seats or doing any kind of electrical work. Removing the seat is pretty easy. You'll just need to remove a plastic piece from each corner of the seat. So there's one there and there's two in the back. And then remove this 14mm bolt, the socket wrench. These plastic pieces can definitely be a little stubborn. You're not gonna break anything. Just get your whole hand around it and kind of just pull it off. You can see everything's fine. And the bolt should be pretty easy to remove. Once you have all 4 bolts removed and plastic pieces out of the way, you should be able to carefully lean your seat back. And you'll see that we have some connectors to remove. Now these aren't too difficult to remove. This white clip is kind of a little thumb squeeze thing. Same deal with here. Just need to squeeze that piece there and pull. And then if yours is like mine, this bundle of wires is kind of taped to a little plastic piece. I honestly have no better way to remove this than to just cut this tape, just zip tie it back together. Once I got everything disconnected, I was able to transport the chair to my quote-unquote workshop. And I figured this would be a good opportunity to go over kind of methods and what you'll need going forward. As far as tools and materials go, other than your heated seating elements, you're gonna need about 25 to 30 zip ties, needle nose pliers, some kind of small screwdriver, and then a box cutter. And then of course you should have received 2 heated seating elements in your package from Rostra. They fit quite nicely into these 4Runner seats. However, we do have a center channel in these seats, which means that we'll need to cut a window into the heated seating element to allow it to fold down into this channel. We will use the box cutter to do that. And then we'll also need to cut out a small chunk of the foam in order to house this thermostat. That way, whenever you sit down in the seat, you're not sitting on it and breaking it. And also it's not uncomfortable. So to actually perform the install, we need to remove these plastic trim covers. Then we'll slowly remove the cloth, starting with the bottom side and work our way out to about here. And then we'll be able to put down the heated seating element in here and close everything back up. I say slowly because this cloth is held down by about 9 hog rings, or at least we'll need to remove 9 hog rings. Those will be replaced by the zip ties. Hopefully all of that made sense. I think it'll make more sense as we go along. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So I flipped the seat over onto its side just temporarily. We'll need to remove these clips that hold this back piece. There are just 2 of them. And then we'll just set those to the side. Now with the chair flipped back up, you'll need to find these zipper hang down things. Each side has one, and then you'll be able to unzip the back side of the seat cover. Now that that's unzipped, we will actually need to go ahead and put the seat back on its side. And you can see that there are several clips that hold the bottom seat cover to this kind of mesh frame. Now that I've gotten them all unclipped, we're actually gonna have to flip the chair back upright. And you'll be able to go ahead and start pulling the cloth through the seam here. Now, if you already started to try and do this, you may have noticed that it's a little difficult, and that is because we forgot to remove these plastic trim pieces. For each trim piece, there is a small Phillips head screw that you'll need to remove. For this one specifically, it's not too hard. You need to use 2 hands, like one here and here. Feel around the pressure points and slowly remove the clips. I think there are only 2. And then for this one, you'll need to remove that screw that's in the back, just like the other one. You'll just need a small screwdriver or something. Take this plastic panel off, and then there are 2 screws in here to remove. So I figured it was easier to just flip the chair over onto its side for this. Once you have this piece removed, you'll need to start unclipping from this side and work your way to the left. And that is because of this little hook, I guess you can call it, that is holding onto this metal piece. You'll actually have to slide this trim piece off to the left. If you have power seats, or if you're like me with this lumbar button, just be careful because definitely have some connectors under here. So I've got mine off now. I'm honestly not going to worry about unclipping this. I'm just going to leave it hanging off to the side. Now, in order to finish pulling this initial piece of the cloth up, We'll need to go on each side and unbutton this piece on either side. There's also this, and there's a clip that is holding the cloth on under here. You may need to use some kind of like small screwdriver to pry it out, but that's on both sides. With all of that unclipped, it should be pretty easy to get at least to this point. So now we're to our first set of hog rings. As someone who's never done upholstery before, I really have no better way to describe it than it's almost like a key ring that is holding two pieces of metal together and tightening down this cloth. Each channel of the seat going out to here has a like frame piece, and then there's a inset frame piece that's under the foam that is clipped to that using the hog ring. You'll need to get your needle nose pliers and find the hog ring. It's honestly going to be impossible to see in here, but you can see this is like our first attachment point. Find the hog ring, and what I have been doing is grabbing it and just twisting, bending, pulling till it comes out. It's not the most perfect method, but we'll just keep doing that as far as we need to go. Here I've gotten a hold of the first hog ring with my needle nose pliers, and I'm just gonna start twisting. And something came out there. I think we're almost out. There we go. Yeah, they're pretty easy to twist. You can honestly probably cut them. If you do cut them, just make sure to get both pieces out so that you don't end up poking yourself on accident. Yeah, from here, it's pretty straightforward. Just go down the line, you know, moving them one at a time. But once you get to this channel, I know that there are 1, 2, 3 hog rings that are holding this center channel down. Go ahead and remove those, and that's where I'll catch back up to you guys. I don't know if I mentioned this before I went ahead and removed all the hog rings, but I did end up removing these 2 hog rings that were just past the channel. That should give us enough room to work with the heating element. So you can see it fits pretty nicely. We could remove 2 other hog rings, but honestly, I just don't really feel like it. So when it comes to this channel cut, I'm gonna have to do some of this off camera. Basically what you're going to do is fold the heating element down into this channel, and then take a ruler and a pencil and mark 1/8 inch off of the edge of the channel from where it's folded in. And then that will give you the width of your channel. Then the instruction book says to leave 40 millimeters, which is about this here on each side. This was the cutout from when I did the passenger seat. You can see what I mean when I say window. We'll just cut out that portion, and then we'll be able to fold this down into the channel. One more thing I should mention is that I'm trying to keep the edge of the heating element in line with this lip. Can't really see it on camera, but I'm sure you can see on the chair that you're working on. Whenever I'm folding down into the channel, I'm gonna take the material from this side only. So I'm gonna keep this side still and kind of back this material into the channel. Hopefully now you have a better idea of what I was talking about. So you can see it's flush with this line here, and then we're folded down in here. We'll do there and there. 1/8 of an inch is a pretty short distance anyways. I found that whenever I was putting it back in after I cut it out, the edge of the cut lined up with the edge of the channel. So that's really what you're shooting for here. And then again, you're gonna leave 40 millimeters on this side to allow the power to be able to travel down to this second half. So what I've done is I took those dots that I made, were 1/8 inch away from the channel. I actually ended up going 1 over, and then I drew a nice vertical line. These horizontal cutoffs are 40 millimeters away from the edge on each side. If you want to copy what I did, you can find your middle crease here, and then just count 5 seams away and draw on there. That way you don't have to measure if that's easier for you. Next, I'm just gonna take my box cutter and cut this out. So I've got it placed back in the seat now. We're just gonna do a quick fitment test. This is gonna be perfect because I'm doing it one-handed, but when you start folding it down, it ends up sitting pretty nice and snug on the edge of the channel here. So this width did pretty good. Before we permanently install it into the seat, we need to protect this edge that is closest to the power line with this included piece of nylar tape. There should be a few that are included in the kit. I just wrapped it. First I took the adhesive like protectant thing off and then wrapped it around a couple times. I'm gonna do the same thing here. All right, so now I've gotten mine stuck in here. It wasn't too difficult. And then I'm just gonna peel it back here and make a cut for the thermostat. It's definitely not the prettiest, but this should work just fine. We've got one more thing to do before we can go ahead and start reassembling this bottom half of the seat. You may have noticed that, at least on these 4Runner seats, this frame piece that holds the cloth down into this channel is going to interfere with this power line that we have running through it. You could get it down in there and have it tug on this. I just didn't feel comfortable with that being the case because I just don't want there to be excessive tension on this wire. So what I'm going to do, and what I did on my other passenger seat, and it worked out okay, I'm going to cut here. And then since the hog ring, I guess mount you can call it, that's going to connect here is under this, I'm gonna make some more room here by cutting into this on both sides. And then I'm gonna have the hog ring zip tie mount basically diagonally as best I can from underneath. And that should keep some pressure, some tension off of this wire. So now that I've done it, hopefully you can see what I mean. Now that I've made this cut, I'm going to be able to bend this bar basically on both sides underneath the heating element instead of on top of it. And then I've also cut some extra room in this hole for the zip tie. Disclaimer, I have never really done upholstery work like this before. There probably is a better solution to this, and it probably will be a little looser. The cloth might be a little looser, but I think this is going to prevent unnecessary problems down the road. So I'm okay with it. Once that cut has been made, we can finally begin to reassemble everything. I'm starting by putting zip ties into every hog tie location. I have one here as an example. Basically, I just went in there, found where the hog ring used to be, and wrapped a zip tie around it. If you recall, there was one just after the channel, 2 right before the channel, and then 3 inside the channel. And just in case you're struggling putting the zip ties down in there, the best way I found to do this was to bend the front end and then just try to place it underneath the frame piece like so. You can kind of see where that bent piece is now underneath the frame piece. And now I'm able to grab that shorter end and pull it all the way up. So now that I've got all the zip ties in place, it's as simple as mimicking the behavior that the hog rings had before. So for example, I've got this one into where the hog ring used to connect this metal piece down to the frame. And I'm just gonna tighten this tie in conjunction with the one over here, get them cinched down, and I'm just gonna go in reverse order that we remove the hog rings. So I'll do these 2, then the center channel, and then just end with these 2 pairs here. All right, now that we've gotten everything sutured up on the main seat, let's go ahead and get started on the backside. The backside is honestly much easier to remove and put back together. And we're gonna follow the exact same procedure that we've already done for the main seat with the hog rings and the zip ties and the cut for this center channel. To get started on the backside, I went ahead and pulled this back part up and hung it over the top of the chair. And then all we have to do is remove these 3 hog ring style connectors, which we'll replace with zip ties. And then we'll be able to start pulling this cloth through the seam here. So you can see now with these clips undone, this side part will come up pretty easily. And then we can go ahead and start pulling on this main cloth before the first set of hog rings. From here is the exact same process as before. We'll remove hog rings all the way up until the center channel, and then put the heating element in, and then replace everything with zip ties and get it back down. I'm gonna go ahead and do all of that in a time lapse, I guess. Just remember to leave 1/8 of an inch on the side of the cut and 40 millimeters between the outer edge and the cut as well. If you watched the end of that time lapse, you saw that I went ahead and took care of everything in the backside, as well as all of the odds and ends of putting the chair back together, such as the plastic trim pieces and everything. I also did some cable management. It's entirely up to you how you want to do this. I went ahead and zip tied the connector to this little mesh frame here, and then I have the main connector running out the front. Now we're moving on to the absolute best part of the install. In order to do this wiring, you're gonna need a couple basic tools, wire cutters for one. And I went ahead and picked up 2 ATA circuits. I mean, there are probably infinite ways to wire this up, but I'm gonna use added circuits in the fuse box. I purchased some 15 amp fuses, some easy splice tools for the accessory lights, and then just some crimp connectors. This should be plenty for what we're doing. So my plan specifically on this 4Runner is to wire up here into the fuse box and have the positive leads run out and through here under the center console and have the switches come out here. Then of course we'll have to wire the main harness in here as well. To do that, we're gonna have to take this off, this plastic bezel off, as well as the majority of the center console. And ideally we'll find a location somewhere inside of here to run the ground. One more thing I should note is that the Rostra kit requires you to wire up 2 power leads, hence the 2 added fuses, 1 into the accessory and 1 into a constant power. Doing some research, I've found that there are some constant power here. I know this one is constant power. I believe this is for factory heated seats. So this should work here. If not, I'm gonna tap into the driver or passenger power seat. And then for the accessory, I'm probably just going to use the cigarette lighter here on the right. Here's where I'm at right now. This piece is pretty easy to remove. 2 10mm bolts on either side of the piece, and you're able to just pull it out. And I've also got this piece undone here. We need to go ahead and remove this fold out tray piece. And then there are some 10mm bolts here, and 1 down in here and 1 on this other side. And then some clips that we'll need to undo on either side. And then in order to fully remove the console, you'll need to get these 2 10mm bolts. It should lift up with a few clicks. Now that I've got the center console off, I'm gonna go ahead and start getting underneath the carpet. This won't be too invasive. I'm just gonna need to be able to get the main harness for the seats out under here and then route it up into here so that we have access with the switches. Then the wires will go under here and around this plastic trim panel up into the fuse box. All right, so now I've got everything laid out. To start, I've got the seat connector coming out of the carpet. It's about the same length as the other cables. Then I have each set of positive leads coming out above this trim piece here. And on the other side, I've got the accessory light wires. Today I'm just going to splice into this green wire here. This is for the cup holder lights, I want to say. For the other one, I'm going to splice into the gear selector light. You probably could put them both on the same circuit, but just to err on the safe side, I'm gonna put the bin in both of them. I've got my grounds coming to this bracket here. I think I'm gonna remove this bracket and put them underneath so we get really good contact there and we don't have to bend the wire any unnecessary ways. And then finally, I've got the switches. So once you have your ground ring terminals set, we're gonna go ahead and start wiring up our positive terminals. What I'm going to do first is grab the accessory wires and I'm going to twist them up and then crimp them into this add a circuit. For the accessory power, I went ahead and took out the fuse from the cigarette lighter. I don't even have a cigarette lighter, but I'm gonna maintain that functionality anyways. How you do that using these add a circuits is you place that original fuse into the bottom and then your new fuse into the top. For this cigarette lighter specifically, in order to match the hot side of this to this, we'll need to place it in like this. I believe on this constant power terminal here, we'll need to place it like this. Here's the finished product. We've got the add a circuit here. You can see I've wrapped both sides with electrical tape and then a zip tie for added stability, but everything should work here. It is a little messy, but okay, so I got the positive leads all wired up and put into the fuse box with the added circuits. Here's my layout if you want to copy me. And the wires are running just kind of along this trim piece up into the center console. And then for those lighting wires, I use these little splices. And like I mentioned earlier, went ahead and splice into those green positive wires for the cup holder lights and the shifting lights. These are pretty easy to install. I think a pack of 4 was like $2 at Walmart, so much better than trying to do it yourself. I've got each seat in here and I've connected everything, even the connectors that aren't for the heated seats. I'm gonna go ahead and try to crank it up, see what happens. Let's see. Look at that. And 2. How about that? First try, I can't believe it. Anyways, I'm gonna feel these seats and just make sure that each pad is working correctly before I really get to start putting this console and everything back together. Good news, each of my heating pads works correctly, which means that if you followed this tutorial and did everything that I did, that yours should be working as well. So congratulations if that's true. The bad news is that these switches that come in the kit are too new for these older 4Runner connectors, older Toyota style connectors. If you're doing this in a newer Toyota, you're probably fine. In this 4th gen 4Runner, you don't have this size switch. I did pick up a set of OEM heated seat switches for this 4Runner. I'm not even sure where to begin wiring. I'm not sure if these wires are compatible. I may or may not do that. Instead, I might just 3D print an adapter for this. Or if I'm feeling up to it, I will do some research and figure out how to wire these up to the Rostra kit. If I end up doing that, I will definitely post a follow-up video. But for now, I'm just happy that these work, and I'm gonna leave it like this for a while. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, share, whatever you need to do. I really appreciate it. Thank you.